Hi, hello. Thank you for being with me this afternoon, or maybe it's evening for you or morning for you. Welcome to the July Essential Vegan Desserts live event. I'm Fran Costigan, the director of vegan pastry at the Ruby Online Culinary School. And if you've been here with me before, you know, because I say this every time, I really mean it. Doing these live events monthly is a highlight of my month. So I'm really delighted to welcome students, graduates, guests to this next hour. I'm going to be talking about summer desserts with a difference, using fresh herbs and dried spices in desserts to kind of spice things up. I think what happened for me was I have a little terrace garden here in Philadelphia, and I just love it. I never thought I could grow anything, but I've got some herbs growing. I've got tomatoes growing. And Chef Char Nolan, who those of you who have taken plant-based professional and Forks Over Knives and maybe some of the other courses surely know Chef Char. For my birthday, she brought me lettuce for my terrace garden that she grew from seeds. So I'm having fresh lettuce now too. Just before I get into the subject, I want to remind people who are here, who may be here for the first time, that you can ask a question on your right side of the screen, your right. There is a Q&A box. Just type your question in, and I'm going to get to as many questions as I can. I hope all of them. And I want to remind students who are enrolled in Essential Vegan Desserts that if you have questions of a technical nature during the course, write to support@ruby.com and someone from the team will get back to you. If you have questions about one of the assignments or something in the syllabus, check the dashboard. There's a Q&A there. You may find that a question has been asked already and your question is answered, or put your question in and I will be happy to answer the question. Also, join the Facebook group. This is a private group for Essential Vegan Desserts students, graduates, and this is a great place to ask questions about, well, maybe you want to know about what blender to buy, or where you can find a particular object. Interact with your cohort, your colleagues. It's a great place. Share your photos there as well. And you can always write to me. Everyone who's here, write to me at fran@ruby.com, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. Occasionally, I do write to one of my students. I might be grading and have some questions, so you might get an email from me. Don't be surprised. But let's talk about summer desserts. It's summer where I live. I'm in Philadelphia. It's close to 100 degrees today. That's too hot. It's just too hot. So really what I want today is lemon water and watermelon and really fresh desserts. But I've got a variety of things to show you. When I'm thinking about how to infuse flavor into a traditional dessert, so maybe a cobbler or a crisp, normally it's basically, the basic recipe with some sweetener, some oats or nuts or whatever. But I did something pretty interesting this week. I'm just going to walk over and get it. If you were on my Instagram page, you saw this already. I'm going to ask Patrick, and I want to thank Patrick for running this today. I've got a mise en place for this cobbler. This is a recipe in the course. It starts with melting some butter, and then it's a 1 bowl batter, and fruit goes on top. So it's quite simple. What I did though was, because I'm really loving rosemary, my rosemary is doing very well, I infused the butter with rosemary flavor. Now, when you're using an herb like rosemary, which is strong, you have to think, well, quantity changes quality. So you can start with just a small amount, see how it tastes to you, remembering that when something's warm, the flavor will be somewhat muted, but rosemary is very strong. If you don't like rosemary, you don't do it. But this is what I got, and I actually have a syrup on here that I'm going to talk about. This was reheated. So you will see a photo of the mise en place for this. The mise en place has some lavender sugar, so I added rosemary to the butter and then took it out. I added lavender sugar, and I'll tell you how I made that, and I will show it to you as well, to the batter, and just a little bit. Too much lavender is bitter, can be very bitter. I had dried culinary lavender. And then when the cobbler was finished baking, I sprinkled some of the sugar on top. I can tell you that I ate too many pieces. It was really, really delicious. So in fact, while I'm thinking about it, I will show you the lavender sugar. Here we go. So this is, it's pretty pale. I have a piece of dried lavender in here to remind me that it's lavender sugar, although I can smell it. For a 1/4 cup of vegan cane sugar, I used just a ½ teaspoon of lavender. You can always add more. It's more of the herb that you're using. It's hard to take it away. Of course, if you felt that you overdid it, then you can add more sugar, but you may have quite a bit more than you want. So this is dried lavender that I started with. I have a nut and seed grinder, and that's what I used. I ground this up with just 1/2 teaspoon with 4 tablespoons of sugar, and that's what I got. And it was really lovely. Now, another thing that I did, oh, I have something really exciting to show you, was I use my friend Dory Passon, who is a plant-based pro graduate and a neighbor and a member of a sister Les Dames d'Escoffier, served this tea. It's called Rishi Blueberry Hibiscus tea at a party that we had, kind of a reunion, and I absolutely loved it. It's not sweet. There's no caffeine, and I loved it. So I went out and bought some, and I had an idea to do a soft agar gel with this tea. I made the tea double strength because sometimes I drink it cold. But instead of just pouring the gel in so that you get that beautiful, beautiful, clear, neat, I wanted it to be broken. And I hope you can see this. I'm just going to take a minute. There's my pointer. I was having a little bit of trouble with my computer. What else is new? As Chef Shar would say, it's always something. So here is the broken jelly agar, and I'm going to build it into a dessert. I have something a bit unusual to show you, but I've kept it in my refrigerator. This is really exciting. Now, some of you may have heard of Lagusta's Luscious. Lagusta Yearwood has a chocolate company, 100% vegan, 100% sustainable, fair trade, ethical, wonderful chocolates. One thing that I have not found is vegan white chocolate that tastes good. The one that I buy to use occasionally is the chips. They're very waxy. If you just want to use a little bit, you know, it'll work. But I read that Augusta has a white chocolate that is being used at 11 Madison Park. If you don't know about 11 Madison Park, that's Chef Hum. It's in New York City. This is a Michelin star restaurant. Chef went completely plant-based. It's a prefix meal, maybe in the neighborhood of $300-400 for the meal, but he's using Augusta's chocolate. So I think I actually melted some very carefully, and this one has basil in it, and I didn't chop the basil or chiffonade it because I love basil. This one, they're delicate because I didn't use a lot, has pistachio. So it's like a mendiant, but it's white instead of dark chocolate. Pistachios, chiffonade basil, a dried rose leaf that I came home from Rancho La Puerta with, and lemon zest, because I thought those flavors go together. And this one is really my favorite. Now, this isn't for everyone. I'm clear that not everyone is going to like what I did, but I'm sure looking forward to eating this. This one, I did kind of a free form as if it was a sauce, just the melted white chocolate with tomatoes and basil and a little bit of lemon thyme. I do use sweet summer tomatoes in my fruit salads. I mean, tomato botanically is a fruit. We use it as a vegetable, but I think there's when they're in season now, they're just so wonderful if you like tomatoes. So I've made fruit salad with watermelon, mango, blueberry, and some of these super sweet tomatoes with basil and some lemon thyme. I would love to know what are the herbs you like to use if you use herbs. I did this was really yummy. There is a recipe in Essential Vegan Desserts for a zucchini pistachio muffin. It's 100% whole wheat. It's quite low in fat. The sweetener is coconut sugar. And I don't normally make muffins for myself, but someone had given me a lot of zucchini. So I grated the zucchini. Now, I don't have a fancy grater. I mean, I grated it. It was quite wet. And I decided to bake these muffins. But I wanted to see what else. And I didn't have any pistachio nuts. And of course, I could have used any other nut. But I decided to leave the nuts out. But I was thinking about this event. And I was thinking about spices with summer food. And I used za'atar, which I absolutely love. And my daughter had just given me some really, really nice za'atar. And that za'atar is a type of oregano that I believe is grown in Palestine, maybe in Turkey as well. And it's a spice mixture. And there are many different variations depending on where in the world you are. But I used a bit of za'atar in the batter. And then when the muffins were finished baking, I brushed the top with maple syrup and sprinkled them very heavily with za'atar. They tasted delicious. In fact, one of our Ruby colleagues, Randall McNamara, who is in process of moving, came to visit Philadelphia, and he came to my terrace, and I served these muffins. And he said, "Who needs eggs and dairy? This is really good." But he noticed the za'atar. Now, in thinking about it, I had some maple syrup out on my counter, and that's why I used it. But in keeping with the flavor profile, I would, the next time I do it, and I will do it again, I would have used some date syrup, which is also called Silan, S-I-L-A-N, more in keeping with the profile of the spice and where it comes from. So again, za'atar is a kind of oregano. Usually often it has marjoram, thyme, toasted earthy spices like cumin, coriander, and sesame, often some salt and citric acid. So it's just a spice I like a lot. You can buy it yourself or you can make it. Now, because I'm growing oregano, not za'atar oregano, I did put some fresh on the top. So, you know, fresh herbs, unless it's a hardy herb like rosemary or, well, no, I take that back. I started to say mint, but I take that back. Unless it's like rosemary, then I wouldn't chop up fresh oregano and put it in my muffin. I would use it after. So dry in batter is usually what I do. And then fresh on top as a garnish. Or use some of the herbs to infuse your plant milk or your oils. You can make a rosemary oil, rosemary butter, lavender butter, all those kind of things. So I think that's really, really interesting. Now I want to build this. Oh, I want to show you this because I know there are a number of people here who avoid fats altogether and sugar. So this is a nectarine actually, and I hope you can see it. I didn't want to roast it. I didn't want to grill it. I thought, let me see what will happen if I just air fry 2 nectarine halves. And I didn't brush them with anything. No fat, no sweetener, no spice, and they're really lovely. So what am I going to do with this? Well, I could make a nectarine cup. You know, I can do something, but I want to show you. I just have to get it out of my fridge. I like coffee. Those of you who don't like coffee aren't going to like this. But in Essential Vegan Desserts, we teach a lesson in how to make fruit paste. This is date paste, and fruit paste is made by soaking dried fruits. It doesn't have to be date. Date is the most typical. It's very sweet. You soak the dates in a small amount of water and then puree it, or more water if you want it to be more syrupy. I decided to soak and puree my dates to make my date paste with coffee. I actually used decaf espresso, and to me it was chef's kiss, as Kathy Gold would say. It was so good. Now, what would go with coffee? I thought anise, ground anise, because I was thinking in terms of Italian flavors. You know, if I make an espresso, I'll put a little lemon peel in it and have a biscotti. I wasn't making biscotti. My biscotti are made with anise. And so I put some in here, and I want to tell you, it was really great. So Richard has loaded in a video on how to make a fruit paste, and we're going to show it to you now.
Fruit pastes are a great way to add a natural, whole food sweetness to your cooking. To make a fruit paste, simply soak dried fruit in water until it is soft and pliable like this. Here we have soaked apricots, mangoes, and dates. Drain the soaked fruit and add it to a high-speed blender. Top off with just enough water to blend the fruit. You can always add more water if needed. Blend on low to break up the fruit, and then gradually turn up the speed to achieve a nice smooth consistency. Depending on the fruit used, each will lend a unique flavor profile to whatever you are preparing. For instance, date paste lends itself well to oatmeal, whether it's added as a sweetener or whether it's used as a garnish. Tropical fruit pastes lend themselves well to many Asian dishes. Their highly concentrated flavor also makes for a good addition to many desserts. You can even make your own healthy chutneys using fruit pastes.
Okay, so while the video was running, I had a bite of the chocolate mendiant that was loaded with basil, and it was really delicious, absolutely delicious. I'm going to ask Richard now. You saw the mise en place for the cobbler. I'm going to ask him to show you the unbaked and the baked version. Normally, I bake this in the recipe says to bake it in a pie plate or a cake pan. I decided to bake it in this earthenware and a little bit hotter. And it was at that little corner is because I ate that little corner. It was so good. And then what I did was when I reheated it, I already showed you this. I just put some of the blueberry, hibiscus, lavender. I made a syrup by reducing the liquid, and it was absolutely delicious. So I want to get to some questions, but something is melting, so I'm going to bring them over. Just to give you an idea about flavors, Laura Hollenbeck, a Ruby, very generous Ruby graduate of both Plant Pro and EVD, sent a gift to me from Michigan, this company called Love's Ice Cream. They ship. This is golden milk ice cream. It is absolutely delicious. So you know golden milk is turmeric and ginger usually, and some molasses maybe, or date syrup. It works as ice cream. And this is lavender blueberry. And good on me for not eating them all. And so this is what gave me the idea about the lavender blueberry, but I added rosemary to the cobbler. Now I just have to put these back in my freezer, and I will be right back. If you're looking for ideas about pairing flavors, I recommend the Vegetarian Flavor Bible by Karen Page. That is on the reading list in Essential Vegan Desserts. And it's a wonderful, wonderful resource to have. I use it often when I'm thinking about pairing flavors. I mean, there are some things that are natural to me. Of course, we all have different ideas about what tastes good to us. I like, well, you've heard me say this probably 6 times already today, but I like basil very much this time of the year. I think that basil and strawberries are just wonderful. Let me get to some of these questions now. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Richard put the link to the Vegetarian Flavor Bible. So Kathleen has a very timely question, really. She says, I enjoy making ice cream with frozen bananas. We call that nice cream, or that is what it's called. I usually add some almond, soy milk, and vanilla extract. Is there a recipe I can make in advance that is scoopable? Right now it gets icy if I freeze it after making it. Kathleen, I make nice cream. I make banana ice cream. In fact, I made it recently in quantity at Rancho La Puerta Spa in June when I was a guest visiting chef. I add other fruits, other flavoring agents to the banana. So it's not only banana for me, it might be frozen strawberries or cherries or chocolate. There's any number of things you can do. I make mine in the food processor, not in the blender, which I know many people do. I add just enough, I puree, I don't liquefy. I don't want the frozen fruit, even if it is only bananas, to get liquid, just chunky, and you'll see it kind of they kind of ball up. And then I add a small amount of a plant milk and extract. I don't find that it gets icy. Maybe because I chill it down in a container so that I have a thin layer. I think that helps. And then when I want to serve it, because I do it in advance, we did it in advance to use in Baked Alaska, leave it out on the counter for 5 or 10 minutes, and it should be scoopable. It should be scoopable. Sharon has a question about plantain. Is it possible to fry or bake plantain without oil and sugar and have them taste as sweet and moist as with oil and sugar? Well, they're going to taste different. Taste as sweet and moist? Probably not, but I would suggest air frying the plantain. I think that, an air fryer is just a convection oven on steroids, really. And I did look into your question, and that's an answer that I think would work for you. If anybody has any experience, a different idea, put it in the chat. Okay, Mary says, hi, Fran. Well, hi, Mary. Your recipes look absolutely wonderful. However, I don't use oil or sugar. I also know your recipes are very precise. Well, baking desserts, really, the recipes should be precise. You want the same result every time. And a tablespoon here, more or less, might not matter with fruit in a cobbler, but it matters. So thank you for noticing that. However, Mary doesn't use oil or sugar. Is it possible to substitute? And will they come out similar? What would you suggest for oil? Well, similar is better than as good as, because I think there is a difference. In Essential Vegan Desserts course is a full course in foundational technique for making vegan desserts that are absolutely unapologetically delicious. And foundational technique is taught so that people can then go on and make their own variations and substitutions. It's always a good idea to make the recipe as written, assuming you have a recipe that is a reliable recipe. Underline, underline, underline. Don't want to make the whole thing, cut it in half, cut it by a quarter, and test. So while we are not, Essential Vegan Desserts is not an oil-free, sweetener-free course, we have many desserts that are naturally sugar and oil-free. The gel is one. It's wonderful. I'm going to add some lemon cream to this. I'm not doing it very nicely because, well, I could walk over here. I can walk over to my drawer because I have a nice wireless mic now, and load this up with fruit. Well, actually, I'm going to use blueberries because it's a blueberry base. And here is an oil and sugar-free dessert that's delicious. In our course, we have a unit on how to make dessert, how to substitute for fat, and many people are satisfied with using applesauce, for example, in place of fat. It has pectin, so it will keep your baked good moist, and it also has some binding effect in terms of sweetener. the fruit paste that you saw. It's not going to work in a cake, but you might consider using some coconut sugar. That could work. Or go to desserts that are naturally sugar and oil free. There are many. We have them in the course, and Forks Over Knives has a whole bunch. So you'll be able to do it. Hi, Laura. This was your ice cream that I pulled out of the freezer. Laura says this heat has inspired cold desserts. I'm with you. I'm wondering, do you have any suggestions for raw crusts? As I always freeze to congeal. Best wishes for your ACF experience. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to going to the National Convention next week for the American Culinary Federation. I'm presenting a vegan dessert demo, which is very exciting for this group, and I will tell you all about it, I'm sure. So raw crusts, people tend to think of raw crusts as date, nut, coconut, but it can be anything that sticks together. Usually there is some dried fruit and nuts because that gives it the sticky. We have a lovely raw crust in the course. They should stay in the freezer because they aren't baked and they are often served raw. I don't always go up the sides of my tart pan with a raw crust. Sometimes I just do bottom and let the filling be the sides, and that's a thing to do. I like adding assertive, unexpected spices so that these crusts don't just taste like date, nut, coconut. I like using, well, the recipe in the course has some, I believe, some ancho chili powder and shoyu or tamari if you're gluten-free. But that's a thing that you can do. You can vary the flavor by using other dried fruits beside dates. Use apricots. I love dried apricots, the not sulfured ones, or prunes. And think of flavor profiles that you like, Laura. Take care. Christina says, help. She says, help. How do I replace the sugar, oil, and eggs in my favorite banana bread recipe? Christina, that's a lot to substitute. So I think you can probably leave the fat out. I mean, when someone says oil, I think fat because it can be oil. There are a variety of vegetable oils that are healthful. There's vegan butter that can be purchased pretty easily nowadays. We have a link to a recipe for making vegan butter in the course. But this is very important, actually. There are so many good vegan recipes out in the world today by trusted recipe developers. And some of them specialize in sugar, oil, and egg-free desserts. I mean, I only do egg-free desserts. I do vegan desserts, so there's no eggs and there's no dairy. Instead of reinventing the wheel for your favorite banana bread, Christina, I would find one that is already whole food, plant-based, no oil, or SOS. And I know they're out there. Michelle has an interesting question about yogurt. She has yet to figure out how to thicken a plant-based yogurt for a creamy consistency that's not gooey or clumpy. She just bought a plant milk machine too, so I'm raring to make some good yogurt. I make yogurt occasionally in my Instant Pot using soy milk, and sometimes it is runnier than, it's not going to be Greek yogurt, that's for sure. But my friend and colleague Jill Nussenow, check out the veggiequeen.com, has a lot of information on making yogurt. And there is a yogurt starter, a vegan yogurt starter that can be purchased. I have recently purchased it. I haven't used it yet, and I'm going to try it. So I can actually put the link later on into this event doc, and you go back in and find it. Or go to Jill, tell Jill I sent you, theveggiequeen.com, and she'll give you the name. That's probably a really good idea. She'll give you the name of that yogurt starter. Pat C is looking for suggestions for an abundance of fresh dill. For me, there's no such thing as too much fresh dill. I love dill. I love it. When I think about my grandma's chicken soup with matzo balls, well, I make a version of that now with, it's a vegan version. But to me, it's all about the dill. I like dill and beets. That's a very traditional pairing. And I make a salad dressing that takes a lot of dill. I actually use my NutriBullet, not my Vitamix, to make this, but a couple of tablespoons of hemp seeds, some water, lemon juice. It's really to taste. Use a smaller amount of water if you want a thicker dressing or a dip. Lemon juice, piece of onion, lots of lemon juice, and tons of dill, a little bit of nutritional yeast, and it is absolutely delicious. I just really love dill. Haven't been able to grow it. It's too hot on my terrace. Monique wants to know what I think about erythritol. Nowadays, she uses dates to sweeten, but in earlier days, she used it because it has no effect on your blood sugar. Well, if it isn't broken, as they say, don't fix it. If that worked for you, then use it. I don't use any of those non-nutritive sweeteners. I don't like the flavor of them, and it can be tricky to substitute because they're much sweeter. I think that of all of them, erythritol is, as long as you're buying a pure one and a good one, is one that you can use. A new kind of darling of this type of sweetener is allulose. And I mean, for me, they all have a taste that I don't care for. I think the best thing to do is to combine them. Karen and Dennis say, on the topic of herbs, are there guidelines or resources for what to use with certain foods? I know there are no rules. Yes, I would say that get yourself a copy of the Vegetarian Flavor Bible. There are other herb and spice books that will help you, and play around with that. Some of the spice companies, the purveyors, have really interesting information. Burlap and Bean or Penzies has good information on that. So I think getting yourself a resource, a book, would be a great help. Let's see. Regina said, did I miss a question here? No, looks okay. Regina, hi Regina. Hi, Chef. I'm serving whipped Flora cream with a tart at a catering event. Have you heard anything about how to stabilize that brand of cream so it can be whipped in advance? Flora cream is a vegan version of a whipped cream topping. It has it works very well. I have sampled it, and I think that it holds very well. So I've made it well in advance, and I haven't had to stabilize it. So I don't know, Regina, if this is your first time making it and you've had that problem, but if your container is fresh, meaning the expiration date is in the future, and you whip it for a long time, that should work. Oh, Deborah wants to know, can you suggest egg substitutes for desserts? Well, definitely, because that's a question we get all the time. So we have a whole unit in the course on egg substitutes. And I stand by my belief that there is no one size fits all. It depends on what you're making in choosing your egg substitute. Now, just Some of you have heard me say this, but I think it bears repeating. When I transitioned out of the traditional pastry kitchen well over 25 years ago, there were no egg substitutes. Nobody was talking about flax gel, aquafaba. There was no commercially available egg substitutes. So I went and looked at desserts during wartime when eggs weren't available to people. And there are these, what we now call accidentally vegan eggs that were made with baking powder, baking soda, and vinegar, or baking soda and vinegar. And that was my base. So I very rarely use an actual egg substitute. I have developed my recipes without egg substitute. So you think about what function of the egg you're replacing. Liquid is really easy. Binding is really easy. Leavening, unless the eggs are separated and the whites are whipped separately, they don't leaven as much as people tend to think. And structure is easy. So you can use a flax gel, a chia gel. That's for binding. Some people use aquafaba, an amount of aquafaba for binding and leavening, or a commercial egg replacer. There are a few on the market. Just follow the directions. Baking powder, baking soda, and vinegar will help your cakes leaven. And in terms of a creme brulee or a pudding or something that would have a different kind, the egg would be used differently, you can think of a cashew cream or silken tofu blended, works very well. Hi, Belissa. Belissa wants to know, will you be having your course again in the fall? I'm currently in the Plants Pro course. Congratulations. That is a wonderful course, and look forward to eventually taking it. Yes, the Essential Vegan Desserts opens up a new series, opens about every 2 months. But Ruby, now, as soon as a student someone decides they want to take the course, as soon as you register, you can start. So it will definitely be happening in the fall, and I can get the date for you if you like. So let's see. Julia says, these are great questions. Thank you, everyone. I don't use organic cane sugar, but I bought some at Trader Joe's and it smells off. I don't know. No, it shouldn't smell off. It shouldn't smell off at all. So there are different brands of vegan cane sugar. Wholesome is one. Wholesome Sweets is one that I like because it's fair trade. It's ethical. I have used the Trader Joe's vegan cane sugar, and I haven't noticed something off about it. I do grind. Those are only 2 brands of the many. I do lightly grind my vegan cane sugar because the crystals are all larger than a white sugar crystal. They are never, these sugars vary in color from very, very pale beige or blonde, really, to a darker blonde. But depending on the brand, because they haven't been filtered through bone char, and a small amount of the molasses that's inherent in the cane, it's not separated out, remains. But gee, I don't know, Julia. I would take that sugar back to Trader Joe's. Try Wholesome Sweet brand, try Whole Foods 365 brand, and see if you like those better. Hi, Terry Lynn. Terry Lynn says, I wanted to ask about dill with fruit. I made a watermelon basil sorbet. That sounds delicious, absolutely delicious, and really appropriate. If you like the flavor of dill, then I would say absolutely, why not put that into your sorbet? I think that can work. The fact is you have to like the flavor of something. Not everyone likes lavender, not everyone likes rosemary, not everyone likes basil. And this is just the the tip of the herbs that we have available to us. Not everyone will like za'atar, I imagine, but there are so many. Deborah says, thank you so much. Informative. Can't wait to join your course. Well, I can't wait to mentor you. That will be just wonderful. So if you want any further information, write to me at fran@ruby.com. I'll be happy to. I want to show you a couple other things that I have here. It wouldn't be a live event or a Fran event. I just put the spoon on here if I didn't have the chocolate cake to show you. So this came out of my freezer, and my way of doing a healthy dessert is to have a smaller piece of cake and really a lot of fruit. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. I don't have gloves on because I'm eating this later. I'm the one. But this is kind of interesting to me, what I'm doing. I've been looking at it all day long, thinking this is what I want, but I can't have it till after the live event. Well, after the live event, I'm going to be doing something with chickpeas because I cooked some today. So let me just get this plate. And my goodness, things have moved around in my kitchen. I also want to show you the Lagusta chocolate in its non-melted form. So here is a small square of the chocolate cake to live for. That's my breakthrough cake. And so many people have made this cake and tell me that it's their favorite cake. Oftentimes, as it should be, people don't know that it's vegan. This is a thin slice. This isn't even an inch, but it's enough cake for me. This is the way I can have cake and feel good about it. It is glazed with a high percentage chocolate ganache that I made with oat milk, no sugar, no oil. And on top of the cake, I think you can see this is a nectarine that when I was preparing the peaches in the air fryer, I sliced up this nectarine. Again, no sweetener, no oil, no salt, no nothing. And this is what happened. And I think it's absolutely luscious. A lot of people prefer to peel their fruit when they're doing a refined dessert, but I'm not thinking of this as a refined dessert. So I think that's just fine. So again, what I have here, let me see, so I want to do this. Here is my blueberry hibiscus lavender gel with the lemon cream. And I'm going to, in this pepper grinder, I have pink peppercorns. I asked for these at Rancho La Puerta, and they said, go outside and pick them from the tree. It was pretty amazing. But this little bit of the pink peppercorn, which isn't spicy but has a particular taste, is just lovely. Think about using pepper on your desserts, or a little bit of, this is from my friend Kathy, a little, because I was out, a bit of Malden sea salt. A tiny little bit will bring up the flavor. If you are watching your salt, or even if you aren't watching your salt, think about citrus. Citrus zest is the answer. It's the answer to perking flavors up. So I buy organic citrus, and I still wash it and dry it and finely zest and put it over things. But, if that's not an option for you, just wash your fruits and vegetables very well. A little bit of lemon, lime. I love watermelon. Sounds like I love a lot of food. I love to eat. But I like watermelon with lime. I also have, this is from Alaska. I got to do a trip from Alaska. This is a smoked sea salt, and it's absolutely delicious. So let's see. Shelley says, I was never a dessert person, but since enrolling in EVD, that is Essential Vegan Desserts, it has opened my eyes to the possibilities. Mahalo. Shelley, you're in Hawaii, right? And you're lucky. And you asked me about, I remember this, Shelley sent a question in through the course about the fact that was it worth it to buy a cacao pod, which is at her farmer's market. Can you imagine such a thing? I mean, this is not your everyday thing, but Hawaii, to taste the white pulp. So when you open up a cacao pod, the beans are surrounded by a white pulpy substance. And I got to taste it once at a chocolate show, and it's just lovely. So it's nice to see you, and I'm glad you're enjoying it. It's Chef Kirk, I think. Yes, I recognize the photo. Thank you, Chef. This was great. See you in Vegas. Chef Kirk, he is a certified chef, and he's got all these ACF certifications, and I believe that chef is on the committee for certifying. And he went through, you know, as many of us are, he's a lifetime learner. I think one of the very best things about culinary is that there's always something new to learn. There's just always something new to learn, and I love that. So Chef Kirk went through Plant Pro and Essential Vegan Desserts, and in his spare time, I can't imagine, I think it's more than spare time, he took up painting. So if you can see, you probably can see the questions. That is a painting of a photograph of one of my tarts, a chocolate tart with mandarin oranges that was taken by the very talented food photographer and cookbook author, Hannah Kaminsky, who goes by the name of Bittersweet. But just Google Hannah Kaminsky, and Chef Kirk sent this painting to me, and I am so happy to have it. Oh my goodness, this day really flew. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for your really good questions. They were terrific, and I hope you will all stay well and safe. If you are someplace where it's hot, and it seems to be many places now that are hot, stay hydrated, drink a lot of water, put some citrus in your water. Agua fresca, I'm going to blend up some watermelon later with some of my herbs and lime, because I like the lime. I think that's very refreshing. And I hope to see you in August. In August, I'm going to be talking about choosing equipment, what really is needed for the pastry kitchen and what's just nice to have. And of course, as always, you can send in questions that are off topic, but I would love to see you again. Thank you very much for coming. Be well. Take care. Mahalo.